Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover the thrilling world of movies. In a world shrouded in darkness, where every breath could be your last, comes a sequel that will leave you gasping for more. Welcome to the quick recap of Don't Breathe 2. Before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Let's begin. The story begins with a raging house fire, and a young girl with a distinctive white streak in her hair walks away from the scene before collapsing on the street. Fast forward 8 years, and the girl, now known as Phoenix, is being chased by a dog. Desperately seeking refuge, she climbs over a fence and discovers a car with a gun inside. Suddenly, a man named Norman Nordstrom, also known as the Blind Man, sneaks up behind her and takes the gun. As it turns out, this was just a training exercise conducted by Norman to teach her survival skills, and the dog chasing her is actually his own pet named Shadow. Norman has raised Phoenix as his own daughter, but his overprotectiveness has deprived her of a normal childhood, including attending public school. One day, a friend of Norman's named Hernandez, a former Army Ranger, takes Phoenix out for a day. They visit a park, where Phoenix yearns to play with the other kids but hesitates to do so. During a stop at a gas station, they hear a news report about a surgeon involved in an illegal organ donor scheme getting arrested. Phoenix goes to use the bathroom and encounters a man named Raylan, who behaves inappropriately towards her. However, Phoenix commands Shadow to stay by her side, preventing Raylan from bothering her. Later, when Hernandez brings Phoenix home, she tells Norman that the young girl deserves a normal childhood. She also advises him not to feel like a bad person due to the mistakes he made while serving as a SEAL. On her way home, Hernandez encounters a truck blocking the road. Despite honking her horn, there's no response, so she gets out of her car to investigate. She discovers Raylan and his group of thugs, Duke, Jared, and Raul, in the truck and demands that they move. They comply, but as Hernandez returns to her car, another thug named Jim Bob viciously attacks and kills her with a hammer. Back at home, Phoenix prepares for bed, but Shadow's persistent barking alerts Norman that something is amiss. When Norman attempts to feed Shadow, he realizes the dog isn't coming to him. He goes outside and discovers Shadow lifeless, with a bullet wound. Alarmed by this, Norman senses danger approaching. The 5 thugs break into the house, but Phoenix manages to evade their notice as she stealthily navigates through the rooms. Unfortunately, she comes face to face with Jim Bob, who nearly captures her. Just in the nick of time, Norman bursts through the door and subdues Jim Bob, allowing Phoenix to escape. Norman sustains injuries during the scuffle and tends to his wounds. Meanwhile, Jared encounters Norman and engages him in a fight. Norman manages to overpower Jared, using superglue to seal his mouth and nose shut to suffocate him. However, Jim Bob, who is Jared's brother, intervenes and punctures a hole through Jared's cheek, enabling him to breathe before using broken glass to remove the glue. Fleeing from the thugs, Phoenix runs to the basement, but Duke breaks down the door. She seeks refuge in a container and locks herself inside, while Duke proceeds to fill it with water. Determined to save Phoenix, Norman devises a plan to smoke Duke out, but Duke retaliates by placing a live wire above the container, intending to drown or electrocute Phoenix. Norman engages Duke in a fight, with Duke continuously reaching for a knife. Eventually, Norman manages to move the wire away from the container and takes cover behind a table. He then throws the wire, causing a gas explosion that kills Duke. Norman tips the container over to drain the water and rescues Phoenix. As they strive to find safety, the 4 remaining thugs continue their pursuit. Raylan, in particular, calls out to Phoenix, revealing that Norman is not her biological father and accusing him of deception. Raylan approaches them, removes his hat, and exposes his own white streak of hair, indicating that he is Phoenix's real father. He explains that he was wrongly accused of causing the explosion that destroyed their home and spent years in jail, awaiting the chance to reunite with Phoenix. Meanwhile, Jared finds Norman and attempts to attack him, but Norman crushes Jared's skull with a shovel. Jim Bob discovers his brother's lifeless body and grieves for his loss. Taking advantage of the chaos, Raylan's dog attacks Norman, while Raul knocks Phoenix unconscious with a chloroform rag. With Norman incapacitated and Phoenix abducted, the thugs set the house on fire, leaving Norman and the dog behind to perish. Raylan brings Phoenix to his home, a den of drug activity. He discloses her true name, Tara, and provides additional details about her background. Unwilling to stay, Phoenix prepares to leave but becomes intrigued when she hears a woman in a wheelchair singing a familiar childhood song, Blackbird. To her astonishment, the woman turns out to be Phoenix's biological mother, Josephine, and Raylan's wife. They take Phoenix to a room and explain that their house was once a meth lab, which exploded, causing severe damage to Josephine's heart. She requires a transplant, and they had Phoenix in mind as the donor. They sedate Phoenix with drugs hidden in orange juice, causing her to lose consciousness. Norman awakens and finds Shadow, using the dog's assistance to walk back to Raylan's house while gathering supplies along the way. The heart surgery is about to commence, with Raylan enlisting the surgeon involved in the earlier news report. Raoul expresses his disgust with the procedure, but he appears to be the only one troubled by it. Just as the surgeon is about to remove Phoenix's heart, the power is cut off. The thugs go after Norman. But in a retaliation for Jared's death, Norman inserts small rattling balls into Jim Bob's throat. This allows him to track Jim Bob's movements by sound and ultimately throws a hammer at his head, incapacitating him. Raoul and 3 other gunmen search for Norman but step on water, giving away their positions. Norman shoots and kills them. Raoul informs Norman about Raylan and Josephine's plan and expresses his refusal to be involved. Raoul advises Norman to catch them before they take Phoenix away. The villains are on the verge of escaping when Norman slashes the surgeon's throat. Norman sets off smoke bombs, distracting the thugs while Raylan pursues him. In a frenzy of gunfire, Raylan accidentally shoots and kills Josephine. Her wheelchair starts rolling towards an empty pool, with Phoenix handcuffed to her. Phoenix grabs a machete and desperately begins hacking off Josephine's arm in a gruesome attempt to free herself. Despite her efforts, Phoenix falls into the pool with Josephine. Norman catches up to Raylan and gouges his eyes out with his thumbs. Phoenix manages to climb out of the pool, and Norman warns her to stay away from him, admitting to the evil deeds he has committed and branding himself as a bad man. After it seems Phoenix has departed, Raylan stabs Norman in the back and nearly slits his throat. However, Phoenix impales Raylan with the machete, sending him plunging into the pool alongside Josephine. Phoenix cradles Norman in her arms until he appears to pass away. Phoenix leaves the facility and heads to the park where she encounters the children from earlier. She asks if she can join them, and they happily welcome her. Phoenix introduces herself as Phoenix. And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Comment down below what movies do you like us to recap next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.